Rev up your engines!
Well, if you've been following that right to repair so everybody can get information and get their car fixed, and not only at the dealership, they're trying to do it at a national level. Those are local levels, like the one in Massachusetts, and then companies like Subaru decided, well, we'll shut all the systems down and nobody can have it because we're not going to make it that you can get free information, right? Well, Representative Rush in Congress has decided to sponsor a bill that makes the right to repair a national bill. So everybody can get the information. You can get it for your own car. I, as an independent mechanic, can get that information. Not just that it's at the dealer only and then they can charge you whatever they want and rip you off. They charge enough as it is now. Can you imagine if they're the absolute only people that can work on your car? It'd be like Tesla, because Tesla doesn't give his information out to anybody. As a professional mechanic, I use a system called AllData. I pay for it every year, and I can access all the information for the cars, manufacturers that allow that information out. Well, most of them allow it for AllData, so I can work at them. Tesla does not. They're not in a database because Tesla won't allow other people to have that information. And if you ever owned a Tesla or had a friend who owned a Tesla, ask them about the repair bill. Cost a fortune, took forever. If you have a monopoly on car repair, you're going to get ripped off and you're going to be waiting forever. So let's hope they make a national right to repair so people can get the information. Maybe you're not going to fix your car yourself, but at least your mechanic will be able to, who's not at a dealership where they're really going to skip the screws to you when they fix your car. Or maybe you want to try fixing your own car and you can't get the information. You say, well, I can't get the information. Let's hope this passes through and the corporate scumbags don't squash it. They've already spent a bunch of money, like in Massachusetts and other states, to try to squash the state laws. Imagine a national. They'll probably spend a fortune trying to quash this one. Maybe write to your representatives, call up and say, hey, I want the right to repair. If they get enough people blowing on them, they'll bend that way. Here's something I find absolutely hilarious. J.D. Powers picks Kia as the most dependable car in a study they did, and they base it on 2019 models that have been driven for the last 3 years, right? Well, if you watch the news recently, Kia just told, and Hyundai, it's basically the same company, 500,000 cars are going to be recalled because they might start on fire. To me, I just laugh how they base, especially J.D. Powers, all the stuff they say is just a gigantic joke. They base it on problems per 100 cars, right? Well, each thing counts as one problem. There's a big difference between, oh, your stereo didn't sound right or you didn't like the color of the dash versus your car might start on fire. I wouldn't equate them as equal points in is it good or is it bad. Look at the history of Kia. Engines blowing up. Stuff like that, right? Well, I think your engine blowing up would be a lot more negative points in is it a good car or not as to whether the trim fit right or the stereo didn't work right. But in these stupid J.D. Power things, just go by number of problems per 100. Maybe there's blemish in the paint on this car. Well, that counts the same as if the engine blows up. No, it doesn't in the real world. So anybody who believes this J.D. Power stuff, they're out of their mind. They even picked Porsche's the most dependable in the top 10. I mean, we're talking insanity here. I don't know if money changes hands or whatever. It's an absurd statistic these guys come up with. And they rated number 2 Buick, a GM product. Who knows who's making these ridiculous choices of what is behind what's dependable, you know? Me, it's engine transmission, not, oh, well, they had a little problem with a leak here or the stereo didn't work right. Picking Kia as the top. I don't know. Talk about total absurdity. Well, you read people are stealing catalytic converters all the time. You want to know what happens to them? Well, the Montreal police found out what happened in their area. The head of a Montreal recycling company was arrested for buying and melting them down and taking all the precious metals out of them, buying the hot ones and recycling them. Now they seized $260,000 in cash from the illegal operations and found a whole bunch of stolen catalytic converters. Right? You wonder where they're going. Oh, that's where they're going. Somebody's fencing them off, Running a big recycling company. Of course, that'd be the place you'd want to check first. They're melting it down. They're getting the precious metals out. And they're getting them at a very low price from people who are stealing them. When I was young, my father played a lot of contract bridge in Toronto. And he had friends there. And one of them was a Ontario provincial policeman. And he said he was sitting one day having a cup of coffee. And he noticed a guy come with a tow truck and steal his car. Well, little did they know that he was an undercover policeman, and that was an undercover police car. So rather than arrest him on the spot, they followed the guy back to his junkyard and found out that he had stolen a whole bunch of cars, and that's how they caught him. You know, they got to sell the stuff and take it apart somewhere, and it's often in these junkyards of recycling. So you want to catch the theft, start watching those guys like the police did in Montreal. Rip Hopper says, are older Audis any good with maintenance? 94 Audi 100 Quattro non-turbo wagon. Is it true? Are they decent with maintenance unlike the modern ones? To some extent, yes. They were much simpler cars. They just were. But say you're looking at a 1990 Audi 100 Quattro. That is a 32-year-old car. Anything that old, the rubber's going to be rotten. And you might think, oh, rubber's easy to change. Okay, let's say it's the rear main seal of the engine. You got to pull the engine or transmission out to replace the seal. Very expensive job. Buying old cars like that. Now, if you want to get one as a toy and fix it and it still runs good now, you'd want to road test it first. You might have some fun, play around with a little toy around, weekend toy, yeah. But for an everyday driver, no, you'd be out of your mind. Because on top of it, especially in the United States, they don't sell a lot of parts for their older cars. And if something broke, you might not even be able to buy the part for the stupid thing. So always keep that in mind if you're talking about older cars. Realize they're 30 years old. Not exactly something you want to use as an everyday driver. A toy, yeah, and they were simpler and they were better made back in 1990, but they only go so far when they're that old. Leo G says, my 2009 Saturn Outlook won't crank. I try to start it, only the lights turn on, the motor doesn't turn, nothing. I put it in neutral, it starts up and drove it a while. Next day, I start it and it worked fine, but then sometimes it doesn't. You probably just have a bad transmission range sensor. When you start an automatic like that, when you have it in park, there's a switch called the neutral safety switch that allows you to start the car and it'll crank over. Put your car in drive and D and try to start it, nothing will happen because it won't let the power go to the starter. You know, the lights will come on, but you can't start the car. But if you put it in neutral and it starts, that shows that that part of the switch is working because they're separate switches. There's one for park and there's one for neutral. The one for park is probably burning out. You could just probably replace your transmission range sensor. It should fix the whole thing, then it'll start all the time. Now, it is a Saturn, you know, and it's an older one. It's what, 13 years old. It's only so long they're going to last. Company doesn't exist anymore, but that should be a pretty simple fix. Just change we used to call it the neutral safety switch. They call it the transmission range sensor. They give everything fancy names these days. Because in the old days, you could buy just the neutral safety switch. Now you got to buy the whole assembly. So you got to spend more money. Well, if you've been following the controversy, now with complaints from Biden and the EPA, the U.S. Postal Service says now they're going to buy 5,000 electric of the new postal trucks. Now, because they were saying, well, these are the ones you get are all gasoline, or gas hogs, they don't get good gas mileage, and oh, we don't like that. So now they say they're going to buy 5,000 electric versions, right? The whole bid is for 165,000 new trucks. And if only 5,000 of them are going to be electric trucks, that's just another typical government joke. Window dressing, sugarcoating the pill to make it look like it means something when it doesn't mean anything. 5,000, 165,000. And then I read some of the comments that people made. I think a lot of them are true. One guy says, oh yeah, and they'll buy 5,000 and they'll be parked in the back because they'll be broken. Nobody will know how to fix them. They won't have an infrastructure to recharge them because there's only a few of them. Or the government will go the other way and they'll put charging stations everywhere and they never use them, so they'll waste all that money. So as usual, they're putting up a front of, oh yes, look, we're doing electric vehicles. 5,000 out of 165,000. It's kind of like the clowns at the circus. You can't believe what's happening next. And it's even more ridiculous than the previous act was. Well, there's an interesting one down home for me in Tennessee. The state is now investigating a possible flaw in their brand new license plates. They're a cool blue instead of being a plain white, right? Well, it turns out that the material they made out of them, if it's rainy or foggy, the camera lights don't pick up on them. Are they going to recall the license plates in Tennessee for these new ones? Well, I, for one, hope they don't. And I hope that they do work. So then when people drive through those stupid where they take a picture of your license plate, if they can't read the license plate, they can't send you the bill. I hope they don't recall them and that those things actually do work. I'm a naysayer on this one. Don't change them if they're stopping that. I totally agree with no, these machines taking over our lives, taking pictures of the stuff to send us bills in the mail. Just like those red light cameras. Now, they still have them in Tennessee, but when I was in Texas, the governor signed a law, said they're illegal. You can't have this machine giving people tickets. They were were making mistakes. They gave me a ticket in Humble, Texas, and I didn't even go. It said you didn't stop for the stop sign. It had a picture of the car at the stop sign, and the brake lights are on in the picture. So you could see the car was stopping. What is this going to be, Terminator? They start by giving us traffic fines, and then they end up by taking our society. Let's hope they do work and Tennessee doesn't rescind and make you get new ones. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.